Alright everyone, we have Andy Warski and Jared Holt news to cover today. Of course, that audio was dropped late last night. I think I was asleep by the time it did, although I could be wrong. Interesting story, rather complex here, so let me give you the too long didn't read version. Apparently, Warski agreed to have a chat with Jared Holt and had confronted him about specifically his article from, was it written a year ago or something, where he talked about how Warski had essentially stealthed his girlfriend. They were having sex. He removed the condom. Now, at the time, Warski had explained it. He explained it to all the other creators, and I accepted the explanation because I'm like, well, he's saying he stayed with this person for a number of months thereafter. They stayed together. The girlfriend was not particularly alarmed. They were apparently having unprotected sex anyway. The Holt article insinuates that Warski is a rapist because of this act. And it spread. It wasn't just the right-wing watch hit piece. It was, I think there were other articles. He ended up trending all over the darker side of the internet. It was Andy Warski Day at the time, and he said, well, I was frightened and, fucked up over this because, basically I'm being called a rapist by this particular legacy media outlet. By the way, Holt, very careful to mention, hey, we're not part of the media. We're an activistic group. We're part of People for the American Way sort of bullshit. Americans for Progressivism sort of, activistic movement. So Warski talked to him and confronted him, in part. I guess they had a longer conversation in general sense, but confronted him about that article, and Holt's like, yeah, okay. And Warski had pointed out, hey, your article, though, is completely wrong, and Holt appears in the context of the conversation to say, oh, well, yeah, I can accept that, that's fine. That's problematic because he then follows it up by saying, hey, but I'm not going to take it down because it's an old article. Well, just because something that is potentially slanderous is dated does not mean that it's not still a problem insofar as it is still actively there. This could become a legal case. I'm sure that it could. I think Warski's actively planning on that end. I can't give advice one way or the other over whether I recommend that, of course, but here's the thing. Holt then makes a cryptic remark on Twitter. I think this morning he's like, oh, well, don't stew with people who have your archives. And I'm thinking, oh, like the archive link in the description that I've got. By the way, somebody on Twitter giving me a better version of the same page archived. Jared Holt, and by the way, this isn't doxing or harassment YouTube because he's a media figure. He wants a blue check mark, so criticism is totally ideological at this point. There's an archive of him from his high school days, calling other people homophobic slurs, saying sexist things, insinuating a willingness towards violence. And at the time, like, when it was first discovered, I thought it was hilarious, and I didn't have a proper archive. When I archived it, the second half is what I got, and then I had to screen cap the rest. So really primitive. Someone else somehow managed to get archive.is to work properly. For me, it's like on a Facebook page, forget it. It'll never fucking work. I don't know why. I don't know how. I don't know. Their system's got a few bugs they need to tweak. Like the fact that it goes down every other day and shit. But between the audio here, where he's essentially admitting to slander, or alluding to understanding at least that the article is blatantly out of context, and in the fact that Holt has openly stated before, I would think this would have some legal relevance. He stated that it is a politically partisan organization that he works for. It is not strictly a journalistic outlet at all. He's said this several times. Look, we're a project for the People for the American Way, subsidiary. Our parent firm is an activistic group. It's not a media order. It's not like BuzzFeed, in other words, which is politically partisan, but at least masquerades as, just the news. Which is bullshit, but that's how they get around some of this shit. The only complicating factor, I'd think, is that Warski is, I believe, in Canada. So he'd have to come to the United States to pursue a case, I would think. But it should be fairly cut and dry, I would think. You've got someone admitting, yes, I wrote the article, I acknowledge that the article is not entirely true, but I'm leaving it up anyway, because it's outdated, so nobody cares. What Warski is saying is that he's still getting confronted by people over that article to this day. It's sort of like when I get slandered as an enabler of hate or something. I wonder who wrote that article, and still end up getting idiots on Twitter who think that something that was said 2 years ago about me, number one, has any modern relevance. Like, they don't even check the date of the article, and they just assume it's true. Yes, absolutely, words have consequences. I would think if someone were to do something like that to Jared Holt and say, well, he did this in his life, therefore X, Y, and Z, and then they were confronted with the fact that what they had said was inaccurate, that they would either be smart to retract it and say, okay, well, you know, okay, the article's bullshit, so I guess I'll remove it, or they would keep it up and risk a legal suit. It's like when that one video of the Krasensteins came out and they were discussing something business related, and I had done a hot take on that, and then one of the Krasensteins, Brian Krasenstein himself, fucking messages me on Twitter and says, look, you're getting it wrong, this is edited and not in context, and he tells me the whole story. I took it down and made a video on the importance of retracting bullshit when you have to acknowledge that something's bullshit. So what does that mean? I guess I have more journalistic integrity than Jared Holt. Now, I mean, basically, here's the thing. He has made his living. He's making a name for himself attacking people online. The funny part is that then he talks about online extremism all day and how terrible it is. Or like, oh my god, I'm getting dogpiled by Nazis. Well, if you've defamed someone as a Nazi who's not a Nazi, yeah, their audience might be a little perturbed at that. It's the name of the game, and it's going to keep happening. What you can't do is take an article that is blatantly not true, and that you acknowledge, in this audio, it appears you're acknowledging that it's not true, and then you continue to, essentially, de facto, pretend it's true by not retracting or editing it. I'll keep one thing in mind here. Holt had written his enablers of, hey, how YouTube, you know, extremists found a place on YouTube article. That was edited weeks after the fact, because the initial cut of the article insinuated that folks such as myself were actually hate-filled, bigoted, like white nationalists or something like that. He ended up having to go back and restructure the article to add a separate section for people like myself that clearly do not fit actually into that category. And why do you think that was? It wasn't because he's like, hey, I want to waste an hour reformatting an article that's already been written. No, it was because of legal threats. Obviously, because he was in that form, it was a form of defamation. Because I'm not a white nationalist. In fact, I'm not really technically nationalistic at all. I'm a libertarian. That wasn't clear in the initial article. It just insinuated that I was like in league with Hitler or something. So yeah, I've been through this before. I know a little bit about Holt. And some of it's just like this sort of stuff is funny. But when you, like literally, like breaking Holt's balls, and I'm sure he gets off on breaking mine, and like, you know, saying basically, fuck you, and, you know, you're weird or far right, and it can be fun. You have a debate, and it's fun to watch, you know, people who like your content go and spar with people who like the other person's content. It's all in good fun, really. It's part of the pan-internet blood sports thing. But when you're insinuating that someone is a rapist, that goes a step beyond just saying, oh, well, he's far right. Okay, far right, what does that even mean? It's going to be hard for anyone to bring a defamation case against you because, I mean, it's an amorphous term anyway in the context of defining it. But as far as rapist goes, insinuating that Warski did something that his girlfriend apparently didn't care about enough to break up with him for 4 or 5 months, insinuating that that's a form of rape is a big no-no. Because it's not. No legal charge was made against him. In order for him to be classed as a rapist, you would have to get a conviction for rape. You could say alleged rapist if there was an allegation. You don't even have that. There's no allegation, there's no conviction, there's no victim. See, therein lies the problem. Other people, busybodies, got involved for political reasons and tried to paint it as though there was a victim when the only person who could legitimately claim that title didn't give a fuck. So yeah, it's a little problematic there. One thing that people need to be aware of, when you put out claims about other people, you've got to do some fact-checking. Or you've got to be like a lawyer and use weasel words to get around it or something like that. But I mean, yeah, check out the link in the description to his video where he dumps the audio. By the way, perfectly legal. He's in a one-party consent area. It's not illegal for anyone else to spread this audio. It's been made public. Sort of why you can spread WikiLeaks around, even if it's technically stolen documents. Even if it's classified, it's already in public, so there's nothing to be done about it. Secondly, the archive of his high school posts. It's like pot meets kettle. You sit there and talk about extremism, and then you're saying this weird shit, and at the time, he took it down within an hour. He said, well, I was forced by the seniors to make this post. What age are you, Jared? I'm thinking you were a senior when you made that. Unless I'm sorely mistaken, unless you got hired by Right Wing Watch when you were still a teenager or something, I don't think that actually happened. I'm pretty sure that you made this post. I'm pretty sure they didn't say, hey, freshie, hey, kid, we're going to pound you in the neck if you don't make this post for us. And by the way, why did your school let it stay up for the better part of a decade, Jared? That's a little bit odd now, isn't it, down in Arkansas, I guess, Bill Clinton land, where you have people who carry hot sauce in their pocketbooks and speak in a deep southern twang when they're on a black radio show like Hillary Clinton. I guess that behavior is considered normal. That's about all. Peace out.